Chapter 12. From the pie shop, I went directly to Roger's place. As I walked to the front door, a gray and white tour bus rumbled past, the human passengers inside craning for a better look at how the other half lived. "I'm only visiting," I nearly shouted when a few of the bus-borne sightseers snapped my photo. I banged my fist hardly against Roger's front door. To my surprise, it swung open a few inches and then snapped shut, as though hinged by a stout rubber band. I reopened it and pushed it inward, but encountered the same elastic resistance. "Hello? Roger, you in there?" I called through the narrow crack. I received no response. I braced my feet and pressed against the door with both hands. The door eased open enough for me to see the obstruction, a musical scale, one end sprouting forth from the inside of Roger's grand piano, the other free and looped across a hat rack beside the door. I put my shoulder to the door and shoved. The scale held for a moment but then parted, allowing me to enter. I gathered up the scale and examined it. I didn't read music very well, but then this was no Beethoven symphony either. Rather, it appeared to be a simple version of When You Wish Upon a Star. I wrapped the scale around my arm between elbow and thumb, knotted it at the end, and hooked it across the edge of the piano bench. That way Roger could iron it flat later, snip it into 8-inch segments, and paste it into his piano book for future reference. What a considerate guy I am, even in the face of the big kiss-off. "Roger?" I called out. "You here?" Again I got no response. I ventured further into the house, through the front hall, past the living and dining rooms. No Roger anywhere. Then I stepped into a connecting hallway containing the stairs leading to the second floor. There I found Roger. The rabbit lay sprawled chest down across the stairway banister. Only the finial at the banister's end prevented his body from sliding off to the floor. Triangular flaps, the kind you get when you push a pencil through a piece of paper, ringed a gaping bullet hole in Roger's back. I laid my fingertips across the rabbit's fuzzy wrist and felt for a pulse. Nothing. I rolled back the rabbit's eyelids to expose twin black olives dripped in 2 oblong saucers of curdled cream. No doubt about it. Roger had gone to bunny heaven. I leaned against the wall and evaluated my alternatives. I could turn around, walk out, phone the cops anonymously, and never talk about tunes, think about tunes, or get involved with tunes ever again. That was the logical choice. Then there was the other alternative, the one that forced me to accept the unpleasant conclusion that I, Eddie Valiant, private eye extraordinaire, had made a colossal boner. If I had taken the rabbit seriously, if I hadn't been so anxious to grab his money and dump him down the toilet, Roger Rabbit might still be alive. I had done Roger a great disservice, and Roger had died for it. Nobody, not even a dippy-tuned rabbit, deserved to pay that high a price. While I couldn't resurrect the bunny, I could at least do the honorable thing. See this case through to the conclusion. Find out who censored Roger Rabbit and why. I climbed the staircase and took a closer look at the hole in Roger's back. It was an exit wound, indicating he had been shot from the front. Most of his blood had come out through the downward-facing wound in his chest. Except for an almost unnoticeable trickle, the wound in his back had hardly bled at all. I sighted around in a half-circle to see if I could pinpoint the source of the fatal shot. Looking through the doorway into the kitchen, I saw a smoky balloon barely visible on the floor on the near side of the stove. I went into the kitchen, stuck a pencil under the balloon, lifted it up, and sniffed it. It smelled faintly of gunpowder. I shook the folds out of it so I could read it. It contained one word: bang. I stretched my hand across it to measure its size. It reached from the tip of my pinky to several inches beyond my thumb. At least a .45 caliber, possibly even bigger. I returned the balloon to the floor. I eyeballed an imaginary line from the kitchen to the point on the staircase where Roger must have been standing when he got hit. Then I went to the wall to look for the bullet. I found it immediately, burrowed in exactly where I had calculated it should be. One large hole, companion to the big bore balloon. Remembering previous police accusations of evidence tampering, I resisted the temptation to dig out the slug. Instead, I turned to Roger. The rabbit wore a brightly patterned green, red, and yellow lounging jacket, maroon house slippers the size of swim fins, and baggy orange pants secured to his ankles by elastic bands. Nothing unusual about any of that. Nothing of interest in his pockets either. About $2 in change, a few wilted carrot stems, his house key, and a gigantic comb. There did appear to be something underneath him, though. Gently I took Roger by the shoulders and lifted him off the banister. Sure enough, hanging over either side of the railing like a sheet of congealed candle wax, I found a balloon containing Roger's last words. Roger must have mumbled them immediately after being shot, and then fallen across them when he died. I lifted the U-shaped balloon by its edges off the railing, handling it gently. It had stiffened to the brittleness of a potato chip, and that, combined with its natural thinness, made it extremely fragile. When the scientists in the police forensics lab got a hold of it, they would measure its rate of hardening and use that to determine exact time of death. I didn't know enough about the process to estimate what they might find. The balloon had clouded over, and its words had faded out drastically, but by holding it up to the light, I still found it quite readable. "No fair," it said. "You got me everything? Jessica, my contract?" If Roger had been talking to his wife when he was shot, that meant either she shot him or knew who had. I copied the words into my notebook, draped the fragile balloon back across the banister, and set Roger over it. I checked around the staircase for further clues, but drew a blank. I went into the living room and examined the coffee table for glasses, cigarettes, or anything else that might indicate that someone had paid Roger a visit shortly before his demise, but I found nothing. The same with the kitchen. A thorough check of the remaining downstairs rooms uncovered no clues there either. I slipped past Roger's body and climbed to the second floor. The guest room contained only a double bed and a dresser. The closet was empty. The dresser drawers were too. The sheets, crisp and clean, had never been slept in. The medicine cabinet in the bathroom held an assortment of non-prescription drugs, some toothpaste, and 2 toothbrushes. One jumbo size for the big front rabbit incisors, one regular for the teeth further back. Naturally, no shaving cream, razors, or razor blades, no electric shaver. A shelf in his shower held a bar of soap, a regular bottle of shampoo, and a plastic bottle in cottontail shape, bearing the legend, hair conditioner. I moved on to the final room on the second floor, Roger's room. The pictures on the wall were from some slapdash school of art. Like everything else about Roger, they made not the slightest bit of sense. I drew a complete blank in the closet. Roger owned a tuxedo that glowed in the dark, but not brightly enough to shed any light on who had killed him. Nothing in the dresser or in the bureau either. I tried his nightstand. There the search got interesting. Pushed to the rear, I found a .38 caliber revolver. I sniffed at the barrel. The residue inside smelled fresh. I flipped open the chamber and found it to contain one spent shell. The gun used to kill Roger had not been of a much larger caliber, so this wasn't the murder weapon. Then at what, or at whom, had it been fired? I copied the gun's serial number into my notebook and returned the weapon to the drawer. Next I checked around outside the bungalow. On the ground behind some bushes, just another window overlooking the murder scene, I found a plastic squeeze toy in the shape of Kermit the Frog. The toy hadn't been on the ground long since the grass underneath it was wet. It had rained early last night, which meant the toy must have been dropped during or after the storm, or the area beneath it would have been dry. I squeezed the frog. Kermit's eyes bugged up, and his tongue popped out. I put the frog in my pocket. I finished my search, but uncovered nothing of any further interest, so I went to the phone and called the cops.
911, what is your emergency?